Okay, so we are gonna use the winter squash that we got in our CSA this week from Acre Farm to make a soup. And we're gonna make a winter squash vegetable soup. We'll use the carrots that we got in this week's share. We'll use the garlic. We're gonna add some shallots and some onions. We'll start off by cutting the squash in quarters, put it on a baking sheet. You can drizzle it with a little olive oil, and we're going to go ahead and roast it in the oven to get the squash soft. While we're doing that, we're going to take the vegetables and we're going to go ahead and sweat them with olive oil. And then we will add the squash. We will add a chicken stock. And once it reduces a bit, we'll go ahead and puree it. You do not need to use chicken stock. We're choosing to use chicken stock. You could use a vegetable stock and it would be just lovely. And then as far as seasoning goes, I think we're going to run out to the garden and get some fresh sage and put some sage in it.
That sounds great. And we should say too, we can use just about any sort of pumpkin in this soup.
Correct.
We're getting a head start on winter. We're feeling fall in the air, I think, and starting on pumpkin soup, which is, you know, fantastic for freezing or for you know, whatever. It keeps beautifully. So
Correct.
You don't have to use this sort of pumpkin for your soup. Any sort of pumpkin would be perfect.
And it's just, you know, it's September, fall is here, and you know, it's a lovely day, and we're going to start the season off with some soup.
Sure. And Josh is also going to roast off the pumpkin seeds, which we'll take out once the pumpkin is roasting and getting ready to put in the soup. We're not going to put the seeds in the soup as such, but we'll use those for other dishes that we put together.
Correct. I like to toast them and then toss them with olive oil, salt, and pepper. And then I keep them in a mason jar and throw them in my salads. In fact, this is the last of my seeds from last winter.
Mm-hmm.
So I used them in my salads, and so the timing is perfect.
Great.
Okay, so our seeds here are coming really, really nicely. I want to give them a stir so they don't burn.
They do look good. Cooking fast. We've got that oven. Must be up. Well, we said 375, didn't we?
Yep. And what we did, for those who are watching, in true Shelley Josh form, we were talking as we were prepping vegetables for our soup, and we said, why don't we add a sweet potato? Because I had a sweet potato that looked lonely. So what we've done is we have taken a sweet potato, we've peeled it. We're going to go ahead and just put it on the cookie sheet.
Bit of olive oil maybe.
And then let it cook down, and we'll add that to our soup.
How's our pumpkin going along there, Josh?
I'm going to take a look at that next. It's going. It's not as soft as I'd like, so we got a ways to go. So I would say we probably have another 15 minutes or so. The seeds actually might be done before the pumpkin is.
Yeah.
Okay, so our pumpkins are still going. Our seeds are nice and toasted. So I'm just going to take them off and put them into a bowl. Let them cool down. And then we could season them with salt, pepper, olive oil. And once they're completely cool, go ahead and put them in a mason jar. Okay, so for our winter squash soup, we've got our squash and sweet potato in the oven roasting. So we're now going to sweat our vegetables. We have an onion, celery, and carrots.
And we've got about 3 tablespoons of olive oil in there, Josh.
That is correct.
And totally optional, but you can if some people like more of a buttery type flavour too, you can put a bit of butter in when you're sweating down your vegetables, but you can't let it get too hot if you put any butter in here.
It'll add a nice richness. What you could also do is to sweat the vegetables with olive oil, and then you could go ahead and add the butter when you add your squash. Colors here are beautiful.
Definitely.
And we want to get these nice and translucent.
Yeah. And probably important to note too, Josh, the carrots and the garlic that we're about to put in all came from our CSA share from this week as well.
That is correct.
And sweating means we're not trying to get any colour on the vegetables. We're just trying to get the onion translucent, and we're just trying to soften the rest of the vegetables. It's probably going to take all in all about 15 minutes to sweat the vegetables down.
I was going to say 10 to 15 minutes. You can actually already see the volume reducing.
So putting in the garlic, and we just had a shallot in the refrigerator that we thought we'd pop in at the same time.
So I would say it's 2 very large cloves,
okay,
and 1 shallot.
Okay.
Okay, so our vegetables are nice and sweated. So we're going to add 2 ladles full of our homemade stock. Again, you could use a vegetable stock. We made a video with our homemade vegetable stock in the past. We're choosing to use chicken. So the reason we're adding the stock now is that the vegetables are translucent, and we're going to let them just simmer a bit with our homemade stock. They'll continue to get softened, and we're going to use the blender, and so we're going to be adding stock at that point anyway. So that was 16 ounces. I'm going to go ahead and add another ladle. I want to note that the key to a great soup, it is always the stock.
Definitely.
And our stock here is nice and brown. And that's just, really been reduced down to give us an intense flavor.
Yeah. And look, that being said, homemade stocks are definitely always the best. But if you are strapped for time, I think a good quality stock that you buy from the supermarket certainly beats using water.
So our pumpkin's coming out of the oven. Is bring over my vegetables and chicken stock. I'm going to go ahead and add our sweet potato, which are nice and soft.
Josh is scooping the pumpkin out of their skins. We don't want any skins in the soup because they're a little tough. So scooping out all that beautiful squash. Did I call it pumpkin before?
We've called it pumpkin, we've called it squash. Called it a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I do need to learn the lingo.
Okay, so here is our pumpkin or winter squash that has been scooped out of the skin. We are now going to add this to our pot with the vegetables. We will add more stock.
There's a lot of pumpkin there, Josh, more than I was anticipating, I have to admit.
No worries, no worries.
I don't know if it'll all fit in that pot.
Oh, it's going to fit. It's going to fit. And then we'll add more stock. And then after it cooks a little bit, we'll then take it to a blender and finish our soup.
Delicious.
Put our cooked squash, pumpkin, winter squash in. I am also going to add more stock.
That was 3 ladles.
3 8-ounce ladles. Now, if we wanted to make it a little richer, we could add cream, heavy whipping cream, and a little bit of butter. So I'm seasoning it with salt and pepper. I'm going to let the broth come up to a strong simmer. At that point, we will go ahead and take it to the blender. So we're going to make some butter croissant croutons for our soup. So I'm just slicing them. We're then going to go ahead and put them on the baking sheet with some olive oil, salt, pepper, and fresh chopped garlic. And then we're going to toast them in the oven at a convection oven, 350 degrees for 5 to 10 minutes. These are probably going to need a bit of a stir so they don't burn. Okay, so we got some fresh sage from the garden. We've decided we're going to season our croutons with sage.
If you wanted not to be using sage and garlic, this soup also does very well just with some freshly grated nutmeg, or pretty much anything you can put with this soup. It's absolutely delicious, and now's the time when you can, I think, play around with the flavors a bit and just decide how you want this particular pot of winter squash soup to taste.
So we're doing a lot of this by eye. I would say we added a tablespoon of fresh sage, tablespoon of chopped garlic, probably 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Remember, the croissants have a lot of butter in them, so you don't need a whole lot here. Salt and pepper was to taste. Probably did a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I didn't do a lot. Gonna put this on the cookie sheet, pop it in the oven. Again, this is not gonna take long. Keep a good eye on it.
Yeah. Oh, and these are going to be lovely just on top of the soup.
So we are ladling our squash, sweated vegetables, and chicken stock into a blender.
You've got a very full blender there, Josh.
I do.
Are we going to be safe?
God willing.
I might step back a bit and just leave the camera rolling.
I was going to say, are you going to step back?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well.
Do we want a towel over the top of this, Josh?
No, I'm confident.
Okay.
I am confident. Additionally, when we pureed it here, it's nice and thick.
Our croutons.
Our croutons are done. But I'm gonna let them, I'm gonna live a little of
You're living on the edge.
The same way you were worried. I'm gonna let those croutons sit for a second. I think some salt.
A little bit of salt, pepper. We always like a bit of pepper.
And I'm gonna add a little bit more chicken broth just to kind of smooth it out.
Okay.
Croutons coming out of the oven. Yeah, so I'm thinking salt, pepper, some chicken broth just to smooth it out a bit.
It's so creamy. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think it needs the cream.
No, I agree.
What could be nice though is when it was served to just put a little bit of cream on top.
Yeah.
So I probably did a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper.
A little bit more broth.
I would say it was about a cup.
Okay.
And
I'm going to step back again.
I really like the consistency now.
No, it's really velvety, really absolutely delicious.
I'd like you to go on record that I served you first.
Thank you. And with a clean spoon, of course.
And with a clean spoon.
It's excellent.
I don't think it needs anything now.
No, agree.